Imagine your own son kicking you outright onto the dusty streets of Lagos because you lost your job. That's what happened to Mama Amina. But what he didn't know, she had a secret fortune buried deep, guarded by ancestors and riddles. Will she reclaim it and her honour? Stick around for a tale of gold, betrayal and wisdom. In the heart of Lagos, where the sun kissed the rooftops with golden fire and the air hummed with the songs of hawkers and motorbikes, I, Mama Amina, lived a life woven from threads of sweat and pride. The city was a living drumbeat, its rhythm pulsed through the crowded markets, the towering glass buildings, and the dusty streets where children chased dreams as bright as cola nuts. My home stood on a quiet corner of Yaba, a modest two-story house painted the colour of ripe mangoes, with a veranda where I'd sit each evening, sipping palm wine and watching the world spin by. I was a seamstress once, my fingers dancing over fabrics like egrets over a river, stitching tales of joy into every hem. For 30 years, I worked at Adire Threads, a bustling textile company where the looms clacked like gossiping aunties and the air smelled of dye and ambition. My hands crafted gowns for governors' wives and suits for bankers who strutted like peacocks. My son, Tunda, grew up with the sound of my sewing machine as his lullaby, his small feet pattering across the shop floor as I worked late into the night. But the ancestors, they say, spin threads of fate we cannot see. One humid afternoon, as the harmattan winds whispered secrets through the city, the manager called me into his office. His face was a mask of stone, his voice sharp like a machete. "Mama Amina," he said, "the company is cutting costs. Your time here is done." My heart sank like a stone into the Lagos lagoon. At 62, with grey threading my braids and my back bent from years of labour, I was cast aside like a worn-out wrapper. I trudged home that day, the weight of my secret heavier than ever. Tunde, now a man of 30, awaited me. He was tall and broad, with eyes like his father's, sharp and restless. He worked as a driver for a big man in Ikoyi, ferrying wealth he could only dream of touching. When I told him the news, his face twisted like a storm cloud. "Mama, you've lost your job. How will we eat? How will we pay the landlord?" His voice rose, cutting through the hum of the city outside. "You're too old to start again. You should have saved more." I tried to speak, to calm the fire in his chest, but he wouldn't hear me. "Mama, you can't stay here if you can't contribute," he shouted, his words a spear through my heart. "Go to the village. Live with Auntie Bose until you figure things out." Before the moon rose, he had packed my bags, my wrappers, my sewing kit, my priddy, pushed me out the door. The last I saw of him was his back, stiff as a baobab as he shut the gate behind me. But Tunda didn't know the truth. He didn't know that beneath my calm, beneath my silence, I carried a fortuneer's secret stitched into the fabric of my life, hidden from all but the ancestors who whispered to me in dreams. The bus to Ogun State rattled like a calabash full of stones, its seats creaking under the weight of passengers and their stories. I sat by the window, my bag clutched tight, watching the city fade into a blur of green. The road stretched like a python through the land, flanked by yam fields and palm trees swaying in the breeze. The air grew thick with the scent of earth and memory as we neared the village of Iperu, where my sister Bose lived among mud brick houses and goats that bleated like nosy neighbours. Bose welcomed me with arms wide as the sky, her laughter a song that chased away the ache in my bones. "Amina, my sister!" she cried, her wrapper tied tight around her ample waist. What brings you back to the dust of our fathers? I told her of Tunde's anger, of the job lost like a thread snapped from a loom. She clucked her tongue, her eyes soft with pity. Children forget the hands that fed them, she said. But the ancestors see all. That night, as the crickets sang their chorus and the moon hung low like a ripe pawpaw, I dreamed. In the dream, I stood by a river, its waters shimmering like silver under a starlit sky. An old woman appeared, her skin wrinkled as a dried yam, her eyes bright as fireflies. She wore a head wrap of indigo, and her voice was the wind through the iroko trees. Amina, she said, daughter of the soil, your wealth is not lost. It waits beneath the roots, where the living fear to tread. Seek the grove of the 7 stones, and claim what is yours. I awoke with sweat, beading my brow, the dream clinging to me like damp cloth. Bose found me at dawn, sitting by the fire, my hands trembling. "What troubles you, sister?" she asked. I told her of the vision, of the old woman's words. Her eyes widened, for she knew the tales of our grandmother, Iya Olokun, a woman said to speak with spirits. "The grove of the 7 stones?" Bose whispered. "It lies beyond the village where the brave do not go. They say it hides treasures and curses." I felt a spark in my chest, a thread of hope pulling me forward. Tunde had cast me out, but the ancestors had not. My fortune in me secret was out there, waiting. I would find it, not for pride, but to weave a lesson into the fabric of my son's heart. The sun hung low over Iperu the next morning, painting the village in hues of amber and dust. I stood at Bose's door, my wrapper tied tight, a walking stick in hand carved from the iroko tree that once shaded our father's compound. "Sister," I said, my voice steady as the river in my dream, "we must go to the grove of the 7 stones. The ancestors have spoken." Bose's eyes widened, her hands pausing over the pot of egusi soup she stirred. "Amina, that place is for spirits, not flesh," she warned. But I saw the flicker of curiosity in her gaze, the same spark that once led us to steal mangoes from the chief's orchard as girls. By noon, we set out, 2 women against the whispers of the wind. The path wound beyond the village, past yam mounds where farmers bent like praying shadows, past the stream where women pounded cassava with rhythmic thuds. The air grew heavy, thick with the scent of wet earth and secrets. Thorny bushes clawed at our wrappers, their spines sharp as a baboon's teeth. But we pressed on, our breaths mingling with the hum of unseen crickets. A sudden rain came, fierce and unyielding, as if the sky itself wept for our boldness. Water plastered my braids to my face, and Bose clutched my arm, her laughter a defiant song against the storm. "The ancestors test us," she shouted, and we huddled beneath a palm frond, its broad leaves a shield against the downpour. As the rain slowed, a shadow darted through the trees, a jackal, its eyes glinting like coins. Bose gripped my hand. "A sign," she whispered. "Good or ill, I cannot say." The grove loomed ahead at dusk, a circle of 7 stones, each taller than a man, their surfaces mossy and etched with lines like the wrinkles of time. The air buzzed, alive with voices too faint to grasp. Villagers had warned us tales of lost souls, of treasures guarded by spirits who demanded riddles for passage. I stepped forward, my heart a drumbeat, and knelt before the stones. "Aya Olokun," I called, "guide your daughter." A breeze stirred, and words formed in my mind, sharp as a needle through cloth. "What walks with you but leaves no mark?" Shadow, I answered aloud, my voice trembling. The ground rumbled, and a stone shifted, revealing a hollow beneath Bo's gasped. But I smiled. The ancestors were near, their wisdom a thread pulling me deeper into the weave of fate. The hollow beneath the stone was dark as a moonless night, its edges jagged with roots that twisted like the fingers of the earth. I reached in, my hands trembling, and felt the cool touch of Metala chest, small but heavy, its surface carved with patterns of cowrie shells and stars. Bose helped me pull it free, her breath catching as dirt fell away to reveal its weathered beauty. "Amina," she whispered, "what have you found?" We pried it open under the flickering light of a lantern Bose had brought. Gold spilled forth coins, stamped with the faces of forgotten kings, necklaces of amber and coral, rings that gleamed like the eyes of a leopard. Beneath the treasure lay papers, yellowed and crisp, deeds to land stretching from Iperu to the edges of Abeokuta, signed in the spidery hand of Iya Olokun, my grandmother. My heart swelled, a river bursting its banks. This was my fortune, hidden all these years, a secret I'd kept even from myself. Memories flooded back, bright as the dye on new Adaya cloth. I saw Iya Olokun, her voice a low chant as she buried the chest beneath the grove decades ago. "Amina," she'd said, her eyes piercing mine, "this is not for greed, but for wisdom. Guard it until the time is right." I was young then, Tunda, a babe at my breast, and I'd sworn to let him grow without the weight of wealth, to teach him the strength of hands over the shine of gold. But he turned from me, blind to the lesson, and now the ancestors had led me back to claim it. Tears stung my eyes as I held a gold coin, its edges worn smooth. Should I forgive Tunde, who'd cast me out like a broken pot, or let him wander in the dust of his pride? Bose touched my shoulder, her voice soft as a lullaby. "Sister, this is not just wealth, it's a mirror. Show him what he cannot see." I nodded, the weight of the chest a promise. I would return to Lagos, not to gloat, but to mend the thread torn between us. The journey back to Lagos was a quiet one. The chest, hidden in a sack of yams, Bose insisted we carry for disguise. The city greeted me with its familiar roar horns blaring, hawkers shouting, the air thick with diesel and dreams. My mango-coloured house stood as I'd left it, but the gate was locked, the veranda empty. Tunde had sold it. I learned from a neighbour to pay debts from a failed scheme to buy a car. He lived now in a cramped room in Mushin, driving for scraps, his pride a tattered rag. I found him there, his shoulders slumped, his eyes hollow as a dry well. "Mama," he said, startled, rising from a mat on the floor. "You're back?" His voice cracked. A boy beneath the man. I said nothing, only set the sack down and opened it. Gold tumbled out, glinting in the dim light, and Tunda's jaw fell like a stone. "What? What is this?" he stammered. "This," I said, my voice firm as the Iroko, "is what I kept from you. Not to hoard, but to teach. You cast me out when I fell, blind to the hands that raised you. The ancestors gave me this, but it's worth nothing without love." His knees buckled and he knelt, tears carving rivers down his face. "Mama, forgive me," he begged. I was a fool. I lifted him up, my heart softening like clay in the rain. With the fortune, I bought back our home, paid his debts, and more. We sat that night under the mango tree in the yard, a feast of jollof rice and goat stew before us, laughter weaving through the air. The neighbours joined, their voices a chorus of joy, and I saw Tunde's eyes shine not with gold, but with understanding. The ancestors had spun their tale, and I'd stitched it true. Wealth could build a house, but only wisdom could fill it. Tunde learned, as I had, that the truest fortune lies in the roots we honour, not the branches we chase,